may need to adjust this a little bit. Keep moving things around. Oh well. So good morning. Is it Thursday? Maybe. Yes, it's Thursday. The 21st. Hopefully you're all a little more with it than I seem to be this morning. Oh, good. Good morning, Deb. Good. I'm glad someone checked their calendar. I'm just winging it here. So I took up the rug that was on the floor behind me because I don't know, it's just bugging me. It's been there for a long time. Hi, Dora. That was kind of a mess. Might get another one, might not. We'll see how it goes. I'd like to, you may have, after the weekend, you may see a door back where that piece of fabric is hanging up. I do have the door. I just took it off a long time ago. The video is gone. Well, everything looks good on my side. Maybe log in, log back out again. See what happens. But yeah, I get to look at all this stuff through class, and I think about, oh, I should do that. Oh, I got to get that done. So if you can see the door, the one door back there, that's that kind of weird minty green color. When we moved in, this entire room was that color. All the doors, the walls, the woodwork, everything. That kind of weird, I think it's like institutional green. So it's like that kind of funny pale green that you see on like cinder block walls in hospitals and things. Old hospitals, not new hospitals. They would never do that now. And there were a couple rooms like that in various shades. I think that was a 70s thing. Painting everything one color. I'm not really sure. And weird colors at that. So we painted a bit when we moved in. But, that's the problem. When you stay in one place long enough, you have to do everything over again or leave. And I'm not ready to leave. So now, 20 years later, it's time to redo everything. So that's where we're at. But the good news is, unlike 20 years ago, I have a little more free time. Kids are grown up. I don't have to worry about, people tipping over my paint cans and getting into my stuff. So that is one good thing about kids growing up. The weather is pretty good today, although it was very cold last night. I don't think it was certainly near freezing, but I did bring my lemon tree out a couple of days ago, and I hope it's okay. I'm gonna have to look at it this morning and see what happened. I know they're pretty hardy with the cold weather, but I don't know. This spring has just been very unexpected. I was telling my husband that normally I'm like the worst, like I'm the slowest gardener of all, so I don't put anything in. Usually, by the time I start thinking about it, I might buy some stuff at the end of May and then probably putting things in the ground around June. So everything, my tomatoes are ready in October, maybe November. I don't know. But this year, everyone's going to be like me. Because if you put it in early, everything probably died, and you're gonna have to start again. So um, I don't know. Maybe we'll be even later than that. Maybe I won't do it till middle of June at this rate. We'll see. All right, so we're at about 5 past, so we might as well get started. Um, so today we were going to talk about Brahmacharya, which is the fourth. Is it the fourth? Yeah, the fourth Yama. So while we're doing this, let's just sit and breathe. Um, Shoulders relaxed, finding that steady breath, even breathing in and out through the nose if possible. Just slowing down the breath, focusing on the sensations within the body. So Brahmacharya has genuinely, or I should say generally, been kind of associated with the idea of celibacy. People get all like hyped up about that because it's a very sort of strange idea, especially in kind of Western culture, that someone would not be interested in sexuality or that sort of activity. And that can be part of brahmacharya. Certainly, um, traditionally, yogis, real, followers of that path were frequently um, celibate. But it's more about the non-attachment to people in that fashion than the actual um, denial of sexuality, right? So brahmacharya isn't about repression; it's about moderation, and it's about all sort of sensual pleasures, and it can be anything from sexuality to food to just things that we may take to excess in our pursuit of this sensual pleasure. Um, Things that make our senses delighted. And there's lots of things, right? We can become addicted and obsessed with many different things. Um, but the repression can be just as addictive, right? People can get on these kicks of self denial and self sort of mortification, where you give up this and give up that, give up everything, um, which is just as damaging. And the damage is really in the dissipation of energy, right? We're putting too much effort either in the pursuit of these things or in the denial of these things. It occupies too much headspace. So what we're striving for, as in many other things with yoga, is that middle ground, that middle space, where we feel like we are still sort of in control of our um, relationship with whatever it is that we are pursuing. Um, and that's a very personal thing. We're going to each of us have to decide and experiment with what will work for us. Um, a lot of people, an easy example of this is our relationship with food. So for some people, eating moderately is very easy. Um, they eat until they're full and they stop. For many people, that is not the case. The pleasure of eating is greater than their ability to um, notice when they're full, when they've had enough. But most of us have had that experience where we start to eat something and it's very delightful for the first few bites. And then we're like, this is a lot. And I don't know, do I really want this whole thing? Sometimes we just eat it anyway, but sometimes we can put it down. We say, well, this is enough, toss it. Um, but again, there is a lot of things that go into that. We can have a lot of conditioning from our upbringing to finish your food. Um, we can feel obligated because someone made it for us, or it was a gift, or whatever. I mean, those things are what make us not able to observe that moderation. So once we've identified that within us, if we have those tendencies, the idea is to manage them, right? So if you know food is an issue, or watching TV is an issue, or whatever it is that you do for this pleasure of the senses, you may have to set limits, set some limits. Don't give it up altogether, because then you're just going to think about, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. Um, but set a hard limit. I'm only going to watch TV for 2 shows, 1 show, 1 hour. Um, I'm going to eat 3 bites of this, and then I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to have a candy bar once a week, once a day. Other people might never have those issues, and they can look at things more moderately. But um, it's a practice, right? So you need to find out where your limits are with that. Um, and again, it's about, it's not about being a good person or a bad person or any of this. It's just about using your energy, using your attention in a effective way, in a measured way. And if we're wasting all of our energy and time fussing with this stuff, how can that be good for us? So, Brahmacharya, moderation in everything, your relationships, your food, TV, fun activities, setting aside um, that desire, and instead, having that sort of grown up voice saying, yeah, okay, you've had enough. You need to stop. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. And that's that, Brahmacharya. Um, Not as salacious as you might have thought when when we start the idea. A lot of people, because some of the practices in yoga are kind of strange and alien to our culture. A lot of times, people do kind of get all brahmacharya, celibacy, and then there's some tantric practices which are that some of them do involve kind of a sexual aspect, but they're kind of very fringe and different. They're not sort of part of the main part of yoga, but there are some aspects to yogic culture which are more comfortable in sort of a different setting than a Western setting. We just don't get it because we don't have that framework. But that does not mean we can't understand it. It's just we need to read it more carefully and not use it. There are some, places that sort of take this information and use it in a way that is inappropriate, making it seem as if, yoga is about, you know, getting super flexible and, using sex in a certain way. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. I'm going to back myself up. Okay, if you're interested in that, if you want to know something about that, I can send you some reputable websites that you can read about it. But there is a lot of kind of nonsense online about that, about tantric yoga and what that's all about. Um, it has nothing to do with, having this big sexual relationship. It's using that energy that we normally use um, for sexuality and using it in a different way. Um, And that's in essence what celibacy, is about in yogic culture. The idea that it's an expensive energy, and if you aren't using it in that way, you have the ability to use it in spiritual ways um, that are more beneficial to the path that you are walking on. But we're not really walking that path. We're sort of on the householder path, which is living a life, but still uh, having, being a spiritual being, but living a physical life, right? Where we are in the world and we are participating in the world. So what we're doing here is a little bit different. So that's, probably more than you wanted to know about that. But it's one of those things that I it's like a pet peeve of mine, um, because I do see people kind of putting this stuff up on websites and making it very sensational and very kind of weird. And it isn't that at all. It's just that people think they can sell stuff that way. So that's what happens. All right, so let's get going. We're getting back here. We're going to sit. Shoulders back. And then drop the chin. Couple of breaths, and then move your head around. Big circle. Couple rotations in one direction and then the other. Back to center. And let's walk the hands out. And then hands behind you, fingertips pointing away. Squeeze shoulders back, gaze up. And back to your seat, arms wide. Deep breath in, exhale, hands together. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, arms wide, and exhale, hands together. Interlace the fingers, lift the hands, gaze up, and then arms down by your side. Inhale, lift, lower, lift, and lower. Once more, lift. Right hand comes down, reach across with the left. Switch. Come on back up. Lift the shoulders, roll them back. And forward. Left hand on right knee, right arm behind. Sitting up tall, take a twist. Back to center and switch sides. Back to center, tabletop. Back on the heels, child's pose. Tabletop again. Let's just move. Cat-cow, we're lowering the belly, lift up the head, and then reversing that. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And let's sit back again on the heels. This time, maybe flip the toes so that you're resting on the toes or the balls of the feet. Breathe. Back up. Tabletop to downward dog. Walk it out a little. And step the feet up. We're in our fold for a few breaths. Rising up. Standing tall. Breath in and out. Inhale. Lift your arms. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step back with the right. Drop the knee. Arms overhead. Hands to the mat. Stepping back. Downward dog. Inhale. Forward to high plank. And drop the knees and lower down. Inhale, lifting up, head and chest. Lower. Inhale, lift. And lower. Once more. Lifting up. And lower. Back up. Tabletop to downward dog. Take one more breath, and then right foot steps up. Set your left knee down, arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Step the back foot up and fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift arms. Back to mountain. Take a breath. Inhale. Lift arms. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. On the exhale, we're stepping back with the left. Drop the knee. Arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Moving back. Downward dog. Inhale, high plank, and then lower down. Inhale, lift up, head and chest, then lower. Inhale, lift, lower, and once more, lifting up, but this time either just head and chest, or you could do upward dog, then downward dog. Take one more breath. Then left foot steps up. Drop your knee, arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Back foot steps up and fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift. Back to mountain. Take a breath. And let's do one more of those sun salutations, okay? Ready? Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, right foot steps back. Arms overhead. Hands down to the mat, stepping back. Downward dog. Inhale, forward to high plank. Lower down. Inhale, lifting up. Lower. Inhale, lifting. Lower. Last one. Either just head and chest or all the way up. Upward dog. Moving back to downward dog. I'm on the end of my mat here. One more breath. And then step the right foot up. Left knee drops. Arms overhead. Hands down to the mat. Step the back foot up and fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift. Back to mountain. Take a breath. Arms lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, stepping back with the left. Drop the knee. Arms overhead. Hands to the mat. Stepping back. Downward dog. Inhale, forward to high plank. Lower down. Inhale, upward dog, or just, well, actually halfway lift. Another one, lifting up. We're just kind of warming up the back here. And then last one, halfway lift or upward dog. Moving to downward dog. Take another breath here, and then step left foot up. Drop your knee, arms overhead, and hands down to the mat. Step your back foot up and fold. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift. And back to mountain. Take a breath. Okay, let's move on to some balance. Tree, standing on the left. We've got the right foot wherever you feel comfortable. Knees turned out to the side. And nice and upright. Right? Make sure you kind of shift the weight over into that left leg. Helps you balance, right? Normally we're kind of splitting our weight between the feet, but we want to make sure that we kind of switch that weight before we try to lift that foot. And then you can set the foot down. We'll switch sides. Tree on the right. Same thing. Knees turned out to the side. Shoulders back. Steady gaze. Eye level or higher. If you can pick one thing to focus on, can help focus your gaze, focus your attention. It helps focus the pose. And then set your foot down. Bicycle legs. Right, and you can come in and out of the pose a bunch. You don't have to stay standing the whole time. You may have to adjust. That's fine. And then we're going to step out into Warrior 3. So give yourself a little room in front. Hands together. Take a breath. Then we're stepping out left. And lifting that back leg as we lean forward. So hands can stay together if you want. Hands out to the side, that's fine too. You can experiment with that, see what works. And then set your foot back down. Ready for the other side. So we've got hands together. Take a breath. This time, stepping out with the right. And we are lifting. See how everything is today. Maybe it feels good. Maybe it feels tight or out of balance. Right? We just work with what we have today. It may not be ideal, right? Sometimes it's harder than others. And then set the foot down. Bicycle the legs. From mountain, we're going to lift up the right knee. So you may stay here. You might catch a hold of the foot or the toe and draw that in close, or maybe the knee. See what works for you today. Nice and upright though, as much as you can. Right? More important than anything is the balance. Then set the foot down. And we're going to switch. This time, left knee lifts. Find your steadiness. Then maybe the toe, the foot. If you've got a wall, it's not a bad thing to be available there. And then set the foot down. Bicycle legs. And then come on up, top of the mat. Arms overhead. Fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step back to downward dog. Moving forward to high plank, and then lowering down. Head turns right. Keep the arms by your side. Toes in, heels out. Head back to center. We're going to bring up head and chest, arms and legs, everything together. Lifting up. Lower down. Head turns left. And bring your head back to center. We're going to bring the arms out in front. Just bring one forearm over the other or one hand over the other. And then I'm just going to set the head down. So your chin resting on the hands or maybe your forehead. And breathe. See if you can notice how the back and the side body are expanding with the breath. And then we're going to start moving back up, tabletop. to child's pose. Back to tabletop, then downward dog. Walking the feet up, down to a seat on the mat. And then got soles of the feet together. Sitting up tall. Take a deep breath. Fold forward. Come back up. And we're going to do fire log pose. So we've got the left leg underneath, right leg stacked on top. Ideally, this foot is up on around where the knee is, with the thigh. If that's not working for you, maybe you have the foot out here or out in front. You don't want to be like up here, right? So, make your whatever you need to do. If it's up a little, that's fine. You just want to, again, like be able to feel something going on here in this right hip. So if you have a lot of tension, maybe you're going to stay right where you are now. But if you have a little extra, inhale, arms overhead, and then fold forward. Coming back up. Let's extend that right leg out. You don't have to really straighten it. We're just kind of turning everything toward the front again. Switch sides. So left is on, or right is under rather, left is on top. Inhale. Maybe fold forward. And back up. Moving that foot toward the front. And then both legs out in front. Lift the arms, deep breath in, fold forward. If your mind is wandering on these things, come back to the breath. Focus on the inhale and the exhale. Right? It is that thing that keeps you present. So sitting in staff, we've got hands by your side. We're going to point the toes, pull them back, point and flex. And if any of these, the warm-ups or any of the poses really resonate with you, you may just want to do them first thing in the morning. Some poses you can still do when you're in bed, but a lot of them it's better to get up and have a little bit of space. Make it part of your daily routine, unless you come to yoga every day, which maybe you're doing, and then you're all set. But but even so, I don't do these foot exercises every day in class, just some days. So if they are very good for you, very special to you, and you need them, do them every day. Um, Throw them in whenever you need. It's good. We need to know what we need, um, and um, and you don't have to get too crazy about it. Like, you can work on one thing for a while and then maybe work on something else. All of these things work together. So there's a certain kind of synergy to the practice. If you are practicing regularly, even if you aren't doing anything specific for your feet and your uh, feet mobility, foot strength, all that's going to improve. But again, like if we do have some areas that we know we have some issues with, um, we can discover, something that will help that in particular. So back to the mat. Bend the knees, soles of the feet to the mat, either lowering or rocking back. Getting comfortable here. Take a few breaths. And then let's hug the right knee into the chest. Left leg long. And when you're ready, we're going to start lowering the right knee out to the side. You can kind of guide that with your arm, holding on to the knee or the calf, whatever you've got here. Bring the knee back to center, and we're going to draw it across the body. So we're rolling up on that left hip, trying to keep the shoulders as flat as you can on the mat. If that right shoulder comes up some, it's okay. It is hard to do that, and better to keep a good twist here and have your shoulder come up a little than um, not feel like you can really twist because of the shoulder stuff. Coming back to center. Hug that knee in again. And let's switch the hands. So the hands are behind the thigh, and we might work to extend. And bend the knee and switch. So right leg is long. Left knee, we're hugging it in. When you're ready, lowering left knee out to the side. Back to center, and then drawing that knee across. And then back to center. Hug that knee in, staying relaxed on the mat. And then we're going to switch so the hands are behind and we'll extend. So depending on how close you have this knee in, you may not really extend all the way. That's fine. And then bend the knee. And we're going to extend both legs long. Take a few breaths. And then bend the knees, soles of the feet to the mat. Walk the heels in, close to the body. Knees about hip width apart, so not too wide. Hands by your side. We're pressing down, hands and feet, lifting up the body. You might interlace the fingers underneath if you want. And release the hands. Set yourself back down. Soles of the feet together. Take a few breaths. And then we're going to move into Shavasana. So you could extend the legs here. You could keep the soles of the feet together. Whatever you want to do. Whatever helps you feel relaxed and at peace. That's what we're going for here. Peaceful, steady, restful pose. Noticing the inhales and the exhales. So, Brahmacharya, moderation. We don't really do very well with moderation, I think, in our culture. We are, feast or famine. We are fleeing from one thing to the next. One time, something is good for you, and then you turn around and no, it's bad for you. Um, I think if we go within and we speak to that inner self, we'll find out what's really good and what's not good for our own bodies. And we are all very individual. I mean, there are a lot of things that we have in common, but our bodies have different needs. We talk about this in Ayurveda a lot, that there are, different combinations of characteristics that each of our bodies have. So we have them in common, but in different combinations. So what might suit me might not suit you. You may need more of this thing or less of this thing. Um, so we need to discover these things on our own. But this idea of moderation is vital, right? And it doesn't mean, we talk about, a lot of times you hear about this thing, they talk about 80-20, right? So what you do 80% of the time is what you need to focus on. The other 20%, it's just don't worry about it. And for a lot of people, that kind of roughly translates to taking care of themselves through the week, and then all hell breaks loose on the weekends. Um, I mean, that's moderation isn't an average. Moderation is when we try to stay moderate all the time. Because when we do this sort of watching everything, doing what we're supposed to do 5 days a week, and then everything blows up on the weekend, then we spend at least 2 or 3 days recovering the next week before we're even starting to feel like ourselves again. So staying moderate at all times is a better choice. Um, but it's hard. It's not, I don't think, in our nature to do so. We tend to veer from one extreme to another, and we see it in all kinds of behaviors. We get started on a new project, we're really enthusiastic, and we work so hard and we kill it, and then we're just like, oh man, this is done. I'm sick of it. I'm out of here. Um, so it all comes back to that same thing, right? Of being able to trust the process, trust um, that idea of very incremental movement. Um, it takes some faith. Um, it takes some experience, right? To know that this will happen, right? So if you work really hard for an entire day, you might get, let's say you have a room that's full of junk. If you work really hard for a whole day long, you may get that room cleaned out, but you're probably going to be done. Like, you're not going to want to do it again. It would have been a very difficult, trying experience. You full of like recrimination. Like, oh, how did I let things get this way? What am I doing? Just a lot of stuff. Instead, if you had taken 2 boxes or a bag and a box every time you walk past that room every single day, maybe a couple times a day, if you walking by, um, you'd be done. Maybe it would take a week, but you'd be done. And you would be done in a way that you barely even noticed. Um, that's the idea of moderation. Things get done, but nobody suffers. At least we hope not. So it's again, it's another practice. It's another form of awareness. You can, I'm sure, see how Brahmacharya fits under that ahimsa envelope or umbrella, rather, not envelope. Right? Being kind to yourself. People might think in some ways that Brahmacharya is a form of denial, but it's the kind of denial that a mother gives a child who would stuff themselves on candy and then have a stomach ache all night long. Um, it's a kindness. It is knowing what we need and taking steps to get that way. So moving then, fingers and toes, hands and feet, waking the body up to movement again, moving side to side, and then up to a seat on your mat. We'll bring our hands together. Deep breath in and out. Thank you for taking time for yoga today, for sharing it with me. And I hope that you have a really good rest of the day. Namaste. Okay, that's class for Thursday. I'm gonna bring a calendar up here because otherwise I think I'm not gonna remember what the day is or what's going on. Um, okay, so we'll be back tomorrow. Um, I think tomorrow, yes, tomorrow is the last of the yamas, and then we'll move on to the niyamas. And then we'll move on. I think we're going to talk about some other stuff too, like, well, the 8 limbs of yoga, which, I mean, we're probably fairly, you may have heard of them. I know we've talked about some of them. So, yeah, there's more. There's always more, right? Um, but the good news is, I think you're already at least familiar with 4 of the limbs. The other ones, maybe not so much. Hi, Rachel. Um, okay. Well, have a great Thursday.